This is Mike speaking from IELTSanswers.com. The purpose of this video is just to give you a bit of a rundown on my writing book for Task 1 Academic Report Writing. And this is available as an ebook from my website, IELTSanswers.com. And it's also available from Amazon.com. You just search my name, Mike Watty, or just type in IELTS and writing, and it'll come up pretty good. You don't even have to put in task 1. You could put in task 1, but it'll be an orange. Okay, there's my task 2 book, which I've made a video about that, and that's a useful video if you want to learn about opinion essay as well. Okay, it's just down here, so you can tell my books by the orange one. So it's about 5th down if you search for IELTS writing. That's because it's ranking really highly over there. Got the 5 stars going on, and that's a good thing. Anyway, so that's how you can get it if you do want to get it. I've got a preview version on my website if you clicked on this link, and I've got some free resources, not really a lot for the academic test. It's quite challenging making materials for this, but if you wanted to have a look at a few tasks, there are some on my website. A bit of explanation, but really not in the same level as the ebook. So let's take a bit of a look at the ebook inside then, and I like to start off with the table of contents because that can give you a good idea of what's in the whole book. So what I've tried to do is separate into different types of tasks and then explain step by step how to complete them. So how am I going to do this easily? Well, because some of the language here you might not be familiar with, but let me explain what these different types of tasks are, and then I can actually show you some examples. Okay, first of all, just introduce what happens in task 1, the different types of tasks you get, how you can plan in general. I give specific guidance under each task, and then also how your tasks get graded. That's quite important, so you know what things to focus on. So we have different types of tasks, and I've got a bit of a rundown on how to write each one, and also a sample showing you step by step from planning to writing the task. Okay, so we've got our single time tasks or static tasks. Think of this as commonly like maybe 2 pie charts, maybe one showing data from the UK, one showing data from the USA. Then we've got our change over time, which is often maybe something like a line graph, and we see different time periods. So that's the key difference with this one. There's only one time period, whereas with this one we've got multiple time periods and possibly even future time periods, and these have to be covered in a different way than we do with a single task. Okay, then we move on. We've got lots and lots of different tasks with different types of tasks with task 1. Academic, that's why it makes it challenging. So then we've got process diagrams or flowcharts. They've got to be dealt with in a different way. We've got maps and floor plans. These, various times of the year, these get popular in the IELTS test. We've got, under these, we've got single maps or single floor plans. And then we've got double maps, double floor plans, maybe comparing a town from one time period to another, or floor plan of a building from one time period to another. Okay, I've actually put future period tasks in a separate section because this needs to be dealt with in a slightly different way. So you can see we've got about 6 different types of tasks, and then even within these we've got different types. So if we think about the single time and the change over time, we've got pie charts, bar graphs, line graphs, tables, and then some tasks will require you to do both. There might be a line graph and a pie chart, so we've got to be able to deal with those. So lots and lots of different flavors for task 1, and this makes preparation very challenging. And even writing this book, it wasn't easy because of all the different tasks, and I just felt like I was going on with this book forever. Then also to help you some vocabulary that you can use for different types of tasks, and then some sentence structures useful for increasing your score for grammar. I guess what I'll do now, can't really go through the book every single page, but let's, what would be a good one to do? Let me just see now. I think what I'm going to do is just show you one of the types of tasks and briefly how I cover that in the book, to give you some sort of sense of that. And then I think when time permits a bit more, I might actually make a video on each of the different tasks and go through how to actually write it. So let's just have a look very briefly about what sort of information would you find in this book. So let's say we've got task type here, task type 3, change over time task. So this is where we've got multiple time periods. Okay, so I outline the sort of instructions that you might get with this task and what are some of the tasks that do have change over time in them. Essentially for task 1s, it's always 150 word minimum, or you get a deduction from your score for task achievement. And it's not exactly 20 minutes because you have 1 hour to do part 1 and 2, but task 1 is worth a third of the score, so you do want to spend about a third of the time. Okay, what are some things that we need for change over time tasks? Well, we often need past tense because things are explained, things have occurred in the past, sometimes future tense if things are happening in the future. We need verb and noun phrases to describe trends. This is in order to show a variety of language and also different sentence types. You want to use a range of sentences to score well for grammar. Okay, so we need to talk about trends and then sometimes data levels. What I mean by that is like maybe it peaked at 200 units or $200, and we need prepositions for time and data. So just some ideas about how to improve. And then language. You need to be able to describe trends. You need different ways so that you're not too repetitive. If you just keep talking about an increase, a decrease, if you keep repeating words, you're not going to get a high score for lexical resource or vocabulary. So we need language to describe things that are increasing, decreasing, staying the same, or fluctuating. There's a good alternative, oscillation. And oscillation, these are all noun phrases. We need noun phrases. We also want to have some verb phrases, the same thing. These are all written in past tense because that's what you normally will be writing in with these. So they're written in past tense, and we have some irregular verbs like we talk about rise, present tense, and then rose, sink and sank. Sorry, sunk. Mistake. Yeah, this one's got me thinking. It should be sank, S-A-N-K, S-A-N-K. So that's why I was struggling over that. This happens sometimes when you write. I haven't noticed that before. I've proofread it. I've had other people proofread it. Haven't noticed that before. Have to fix it. That's the great thing about ebooks is I can just go back, make a change, fix it, and then republish it. So it's really easy. Same thing with my books on Amazon. I can easily make changes. Okay, we need language to describe specific points. So here we have a peak. So a high point. So another way of saying a high point or low point. We can also say a nadir. So a bit of high level language there. Sometimes one of the lines crosses over one of the others. So we need to have a way to say this was overtaken by overtook. Okay. Then sentence structure. Yeah, so there's a section on sentence structure which shows what I was talking about, the way that we can use noun phrases or verb phrases, and essentially how we can also modify those with adjectives and adverbs. just real quick, I think it's not a bad idea. Should have really done this earlier, just to show you what I mean by change over time tasks. So you can see we have data for different years, and this is a change over time task. So this is what I'm talking about. We need to have language to describe the trends about increasing, decreasing. Here's our high point. There's our low point on the there and there. So we need to have language to be able to describe these lines. And so that's what I was showing you earlier, that this book has got some of that language in there, and you could pause the video and have a look at some of that language if you wanted to. It's something that you could do. Okay, so just jumping back, so sentence structure, we want to have noun phrases and then we want to modify them with adjectives. So instead of just saying there was an increase, we could say there was a dramatic increase. Now this is a good thing to do. It makes your task achievement better if you can be more precise. So it helps your task achievement. It also helps vocabulary because you're able to show words like dramatic, and you're able to show the examiner the precision in language counts for your lexical resource, your vocabulary, and also for the task achievement. So this is a good thing to do. So instead of just talking about an increase, maybe a slight increase, dramatic increase if it's larger. Okay, so we want to have these sentence structures, and then just telling you that this is a good thing to do. So there's tips throughout the book as well, and this I think is useful as well, just to highlight some of the things that you can do. And then I've got some adjectives and adverbs on this next page, and some of them we need to modify the size of things, like I said, a dramatic increase, and then some of it to modify the time, a sudden increase. So this one's emphasizing the time, and this one's the size of the trend. A dramatic increases, and these are arranged from high to low. So a slight increase, a dramatic increase, much bigger. And then some adverbs to go with our verbs. And the adverbs are usually just adding an ly onto the adjectives. Okay, so that's and then okay, then we need some other things. Prepositions. These are the annoying little problems for people, and so I write these down so you can get some ideas of how to use the different prepositions with time and also with numbers. These are the sort of thing that you know, if you make a little error, like maybe you said at 1940 instead of in, it wouldn't necessarily decrease your score. Not that on its own, but if you've got errors throughout to deal with it, to do with these types of little prepositions, that has an effect. It could work out that it's slowing your grammar because you're lacking an element in the sentence. Sometimes it affects your lexical resource because we've got collocation, certain words going with certain prepositions. Okay, so accuracy is important to get high scores for grammar. Low scores, if you only need a low score, you might be all right, as long as you don't make too many errors. We need to talk about language with numbers and percentages because we use different words for these. We need different words with countable numbers like trees, the number of trees. For uncountable things like water, we can't say the number of water. It's got to be the amount of water. Percentages, we want to have different ways to express things. Okay, so I've given lots and lots of examples so that you can avoid having to say always stick to this same sentence, and then we're doing damage to our score for lexical resource and also for grammar because we end up with these repetitive structures. So that's quite important. Okay, and then we get to our steps, step by step. How can we do our tasks? Step one, always read and underline key vocabulary in the question. Try to rephrase them, just like with the essays. Okay, make sure it's about percentages or numbers. Don't get halfway through and then suddenly you realize it's about percentages or it's about dollars or something. Brainstorm key points. Now with these change over time tasks, there's some really some key points, and one of the things you want to remember is as the amount of data increases, you've got to be more selective. I might explain this a bit more when we go back and look at the task. let's have, okay, so let's say it was this task. What, actually, if I go down a bit, yeah. Okay, what I do for each type of task is I give you the task. I show you the task so we can see the task here. This is a pretty simple one, only 2 lines. You might end up with one in the exam with 4 lines, even 6 lines could happen. And then we have to get more selective. I've written a model answer. Okay, then I show you step by step how I arrived at this model answer. So I give you the answer first, and then I show you the steps. So let's see the steps. I was just talking about this one, about underlining keywords and about checking whether it's percentages or numbers. Then we've got to brainstorm our key points. Now, I strongly suggest you do this before you start writing. Okay, it's an important thing because you've only got 20 minutes and 150 words. You don't want to say too much. And as I said, as the amount of data increases, we've got to be more selective. Also, what you really want is about 10, maybe 12 key points that you want to talk about. Now, I've shown you the top 6 points here. Always the start numbers are important. Always the end numbers are important. Imagine you are talking about how much money you saved. You'd want to talk about when you started saving the money, how much you've got at the end of the period. And you might also talk about the high point. Maybe you actually had more money in the past, but then you developed an expensive habit and it started to decrease. So these are the important numbers, the start numbers, the end numbers, and something in the middle. Okay, now then we've only got 6 points, so we have to find some secondary ones. And here we got some of the secondary features. We could, if we look up at this is about smokers, male smokers, we could talk about this period here where there was no change, where it was stable, this plateau or a period of stability. Or we could talk about this dramatic rise here. Again, we've got the leveling off here, and now the decline, period of decline along here. So as I said, we want about 10 to 12 key points to talk about. Now, the other thing that's absolutely critical to getting above 5, so if you need a score above 5, and I don't care how good a writer you are, then you've got to have an overall summary. I thought I'd better just explain why this overview is so critical and why I'm saying that you're not getting a 6 without it. Let's have a look at the publicly available scores for grading. These are available on my website. I link to them if you go to my writing page. Okay, here's what it says here. No clear overview. So this means that your score gets restricted here if you've got no clear overview. Okay, so a 5 for academic recounts, detail, mechanically, that's just listing items like any, this is maybe a bit difficult to explain, but the thing here about, well, it's not listing, now I've got to really say it because I've started. Recounts, detail, mechanically, maybe just going through step by, when I come back to the task, I'll explain what this is. No clear overview means that you haven't summarized the key points of the chart. Okay, so if we have this, or if we have this, you're limited to a 5. Let's see what we need for a 6. Presents an overview. So now we've got an overview and with information appropriately selected. This is why I'm saying the planning is important. You've got to have an overview and you've got to select the information appropriately. We'll go back to the task and I'll explain this a bit further. Yeah, okay, so what I mean by mechanically is we would just be saying in 1960 it was this, and in 1965 it was this, and in 1970 it was this, maybe jump down a bit, 1990 it was this, 1995 it was this, 2000 it was this. That's what I mean by mechanically. In order to get high scores, we've got to select our data. That's why I said this is really the key points that we must cover, and then we might just find some additional ones. Okay, now overall summary, we have to find what's the key point about this, and a good way to think about that is if you could only say 1 or 2 things about this chart, what would it be? And since it's a change over time, we want to look at the start numbers and the end numbers. And if we do that, we can see a couple of things. So we've got male smokers declined strongly, whereas female smokers rose slightly. So if we look from start to finish, male smokers went down. Female smokers actually went up. Okay, so those are a couple of things that we could mention. The other key point is that male smokers are always more than female smokers. That's probably the most important one. So you could actually put both of those things in there, and that would come up with or result in an excellent overall summary. Okay, so that overall summary, that's the most important part of your report. You absolutely must do that for every task, and I show you for every task how to write the overall summary, because often I've found students don't know how to write them with, say, the map tasks or the process diagrams. So they leave them out, and they do that in the real exam, and guess what? Like I showed you back on those public grading criteria, you can't get to 6 for task achievement. Even you're a native writer, it doesn't matter how great you cover all this data, if you do not have the overall summary, you're going to get a low score. Okay, and then the last part is just to plan how we're going to cover the data. And I'd say with this one, be ideal for 3 paragraphs. An introduction where we rephrase what the task's about, give our overall summary, then we could have a paragraph about male smokers, then a paragraph about female smokers. Note there's no conclusion. It's a report. We do not need to have a conclusion for an IELTS report. We must have an overall summary though. Sometimes people put that at the end. That's fine. It can go there. Better here for a bunch of reasons. For instance, what if you run out of time? You didn't write this. Well, now your score is going to suffer. So put it in the introduction, and also you won't forget it this way. Last step is to write it, and that's what's above in the book. You can, if we just scroll back, I've got a model answer here and 153 words. How good is that? It's sometimes difficult to cover these tasks without going too far over the word limit. That can be a challenge sometimes. So I showed you one of the task types, and I essentially used that same structure for the different task types. I just thought I'd show you quickly at the end some other parts of the book. So at the back of the book, I've got a section on vocabulary and some different types of phrases in general, and then for different types of tasks like tables, pie charts, bar graphs, line graphs, maps. Some language of approximation. Sometimes numbers aren't precise. You can't see exactly what they are. It's approximately. Nice word. So some different types of language here that's useful as well, I think. And then the last part is about sentence structures. And like I said, you want to use a different range of sentences because that's how you get a high score for grammar. If you use the same sentence structures throughout, don't expect a high score. So yeah, there's different ways of organizing your sentence, and I'll show you those. That's important, especially if you're trying to get a really high score for grammar. And all my ebooks for writing, I have this special offer at the back that if you buy one of my ebooks, you can send me a task. So that's a good thing too, because after reading the book, you probably want to write something and get somebody to have a look at it and see that you've done it right, that you've understood things that you've been reading correctly. The other thing that I think is great about the books that I'm selling is that if you buy one of them, and it doesn't matter whether you buy it off Amazon or from my website, if you buy my books and there's something in there that you don't quite understand, well, guess what? You can send me an email and ask me questions. And I think that's a special thing, because normally if you've got a book and you don't understand it, you're kind of stuck with it. But with this method, you can actually contact me and I'll respond to you. So just so you know how to do that, you could just go to my homepage, and I've got my email address on there. You can follow me on Facebook if you want to. If you want to register for my website, I will send you stuff periodically, not too often, maybe like once a week or something like that, certainly not every day. And there's also lots of free information on my website if you want. So that's a couple of ideas. Later, if you want help with your writing, I have a service on here. You can write tasks and send them to me, and I'll have a bit of a look at them. So that's just a couple of ideas there as well. So anyway, hope that this video has been useful, and I'm going to keep making a few more, so you can follow me on YouTube. My YouTube is IELTS Answers, and I'm also on Facebook, IELTS Answers as well.